to go ahead and call the meeting to order. If everyone could please stand and join me for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I do need a motion to make an adjustment to the agenda to move our new business to be moved before old business.
So moved.
Second.
Is there any discussion? All those in favor? 2.1, to approve the minutes of our March 15th, 2023 special meeting, March 22nd, 2023 regular meeting, and the March 29th, 2023 special meeting.
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? No? Seeing as there's none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor? Okay, thank you. At this time, I'd like to offer an opportunity for the public to make a comment. If you would come up to the microphone, identify yourself as your name and the town that you are from, and just please remember to be polite and just not use any names. Nobody? All right, moving on. Petitions and communications? None? Reports. Superintendent's report.
So I just have two things I want to share. First, I want to share that the Western Maine Superintendents Association has nominated Kathy Martin for providing outstanding educational leadership on behalf of Maine children. So she will be recognized as our representative from Western Maine for her outstanding leadership, and she will receive the award in June at the Commissioner's Report. So congratulations. The other exciting news was National Honor Society had quite a few new members, and I know, Diane, you were there with me to celebrate. So we had 5 seniors join National Honor Society, 8 juniors, 4 sophomores, and then there were 5 that were inducted from 2022. So outstanding to see students qualifying for National Honor Society. We know that takes a lot. It's not just about your grades, but what you do for your school community. So congratulations to all those students.
Assistant Superintendent report.
So I am going to give my time up tonight for Rebecca D'Alessandro. So throughout the year, you have heard her name mentioned numerous times, whether it was connected to professional learning during our PLG time or it was a family event. Becky has had a hand in a lot of our events and things throughout this school year. So I wanted to give her a chance to kind of just showcase some of the great work that she did, especially during the Read Across America. So she's going to showcase that. So I'm going to give my airtime to her.
Don't mind me. Just okay. Well, as good as it's going to get, I think. Good evening, board members. Thank you for the time this evening. Thank you, Kathy, for the time. My name is Becky D'Alessandro. I am the district literacy coach working at Libby Tozier Sabatis Primary and also supporting other schools in the district as needed this year. I'm pleased to join you this evening to talk about Read Across America, which happened in early March at all 3 of our elementary schools. So this event took place at Libby Tozier, Sabatis Primary, and Carrie Ricker School this year. With the help of a tremendous village of support, I was able to put together this celebratory reading experience that impacted over 500 of our students. Read Across America was an initiative launched in 1998 by the National Education Association to promote the value of reading to children across the country. This year, we chose to showcase the beauty and value of reading in all of its forms. Each day of Read Across America Week in our elementary schools featured a message to students about the power and joy of reading. So on day 1, in all 3 schools, we learned reading is for everyone. We're all readers. We welcomed celebrities to classrooms to read to our students, like our nurses, our school resource officer, our superintendent, many more. On day 2, we learned that stories come to life. We dressed like storybook characters and enjoyed a fantastic Reader's Theater performance from Lucy Ryu and members of her Oak Hill High School drama troupe. On day 3, we read old favorites. Some classes partnered up to share favorite stories. Teachers read some of their favorite stories, and we also welcomed our pre-K teachers to come read old favorites to the older students. So Mrs. LaValle, Mrs. Casares, and Mrs. Wilkins joined us to read to the older kids. On day 4, we learned that we can read to learn more about the world. We were immersed in informational nonfiction texts all day and welcomed special guest presenters from Mad Science of Maine and Sparks Arc. And then on day 5, we celebrated everyone who writes stories, including our young writers. We welcomed authors and illustrators from Oak Hill High School to read children's books that they had written specifically for this event. The collaboration and powerful learning opportunity for both our oldest and youngest learners would not have been possible without the tremendous support of Katie Stubbs and Jeremy Young, 2 teachers at Oak Hill High School. After reviewing staff feedback from the week-long event, this was absolutely the highlight of the week, and it's a project we look forward to continuing in years to come. I believe that our work to make this event happen annually at all of our schools will help motivate our kids and families to read, read, read. So I want to show you a slideshow, brief slideshow of our week.
Any questions for Becky?
Thank you, Mrs. Alessandro. We will move on to, were you done, Kathy?
Yes.
Financial report is the 26th. Administrator's report is also the 26th. So director's report, Norma Jean.
Let's see if there's anybody waiting real quick, if you don't mind. We need another tech person.
Because you're still sharing your screen. On the other one.
On the other one?
No, stop sharing.
There you go. That's kind of thing you see over there. Sharing my screen.
Do it right from here. How's that? All right. So thank you very much. Sorry for all the tech issues, but we'll get there. For the technology report for April, I just want to let everybody know that I had to have a, of course that works, right? For April, we're just getting ready for vacation school. So there's vacation school at the high school. So we're just prepping for that. And then we're preparing for the new spring NWA, which is the through year, which is a little bit more challenging than the original. And we're going to get around that. And then also next week, a couple of us are doing some spring cleaning at the high school. Kind of, we need to get rid of some of that wonderful dust that John made for us. And so our tech storage is kind of unusable, which is holding us back from doing some of our spring stuff. So we're doing a little bit of cleaning, a little more organizing. When we took the network down for the server room work that I showed you last month, we put it together really fast to get it back up, and some of our cabling looks like spaghetti. So we're going to fix that during April vacation after the kids leave, for vacation school. And that is it for me.
Jonathan?
All right, so just a couple of updates, news and announcements. At the high school, the chemistry lab and the science office are what are remaining for work to be done. All other areas that were affected have been completed outside of the flooring repairs, which we are getting a vendor in over April break to do as much of the high traffic flooring areas that need to be repaired. On a school safety side of things, our committee has met and we've updated all the room numbers that we're posting on the outside of the building for EMS, fire, PD to be able to identify the rooms in the case of emergency. Again, also building maps, aerial views for PD, fire, and EMS, and then also communication links between first responders, call centers, things of that nature. And then it's not so much a facility side of things, but I did do a Raider connection with the juniors. I kind of wanted to quickly share. Marco was gracious enough to let me come and talk to the junior class about some post-high school career opportunities. I was lucky enough to go to college, to trade school, and to join the service. So I was able to provide quite, I believe, some valuable insight to our students. Those looking both to go to college, to go to trade school, to go into the service, and ways that you can actually pay for college and pay for trade school without taking out a bunch of loans. So I thought that provided some good, valuable information, and I got some good feedback from the juniors, and I'm hoping maybe I can do it for the seniors too. I think that'd be great for them. So on the facility side, that's the update there. And then on transportation, just quickly, Camp Rise and summer school bus runs are going to be, slowly developed as we get, people signing up for summer school. So we're going to be working on that. And then just quickly, a staff appreciation. Leo Labby is retiring. He will not be returning after April break. So just wanted to mention his name and thank you for all his time driving a bus for us at RSU4. And then also welcome back Phil. Phil Roy is a local community member in Litchfield who owns the Birches. He helped us out very, quite a bit actually, really last year before school got out. He's back from Florida and willing to help out with a lot of upcoming trips, Step Up Day, and a few times that we have some bus drivers out. So wanted to welcome back. And that is it for the transportation side. Any questions?
What color bus did Leo drive?
Leo drove the brown bus. And we've actually put a plan together today that will still provide transportation for all those kiddos with RSU4 busing. So we're going to put that out tomorrow for parents that have some kiddos just being moved around to different buses.
Anything else for Jonathan? Thank you, Jonathan.
Sure.
Nancy?
Good evening, everybody. I'll just go like this. In the interest of time, I just have one item that I want to talk about. Could you just advance the slide? Thank you, Norma Jean. Marco and I had both, I think, at different meetings this school year have talked about the partnership that Goodwill and Voc Rehab have embarked on together to offer to schools a pre-transition vocational experience. So that consists of VR Boot Camp, which is a class that a lot of our students with IEPs had signed up for this year, and that culminates in a work experience of 6 to 8 weeks. So I just wanted to highlight one of our students who is a junior at Oak Hill High School, William Robitaille. And Marco's in that picture, not photobombing it, but he, William, when I asked if I could share his picture, he said, yeah, but I want to take it with Jay, who's one of the custodians, and Jay was out today. So Marco kindly stepped in.
Marco, second fiddle again.
Yeah.
What else is new, Robbie?
Right. So William's work experience that he is just starting, which is a paid experience, he is working with the custodians at Oak Hill High School. And when I interviewed him this week, and when I asked William what he wants to do, he wants to come back. He's very eager to work for RSU4. He would like to be a custodian and or a bus driver. He's currently pursuing his driver's license. He does a lot of lawn mowing and all kinds of things on the side for people, so he really, really likes helping out. He is loving his work experience. John Varney helped set that up. Thank you, John. And John encouraged him, though he doesn't have to fill out a time card and really do everything, that he would have to do in a real job. So William is doing a fantastic job. He loves it. I asked him what he's doing with the money that he's earning, and he said he's saving up for a Ford F-350, I think, with a crew cab. He's got it. Yeah, he's got it all picked out. He's buying it off someone. What'd you say?
Going big.
Yeah. Yep. So I just wanted to say thank you to William, and I'm sure at some point you'll be hearing more from him post-graduation. Any questions?
He was my kindergarten student.
Oh, my gosh. Look how tall he is.
I know.
Well, it's hard to tell next to Marco.
I saw him at the ice cream place.
Oh, sorry. No, I'm kidding. I was kidding you. He was your kindergartner? Wow.
Yeah.
He's a nice young man.
Oh, yeah,
He is.
he's very friendly. He loves to deliver the cinnamon rolls when they make his cinnamon rolls, and all out in the community.
He was like that since kindergarten.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Thank you, Nancy. Brian?
Sorry, Jim, I am raising this up on you. All right, good evening, everybody. Just to kind of get started here, just kind of a highlight on some sports here going on at the middle and high school. First thing, I know at our last board meeting, when I gave a report, there were some questions about activities happening with the youth or recreation programs, and I just wanted to highlight that all 4 of our high school programs have either already hosted or are in the process of hosting some sort of community or rec program. Our baseball, softball program just finished one. They did stuff on Saturdays or Sundays with rec up at the high school, and that's actually the pictures you can see there. That was our softball one, and you can see some of our younger softball athletes working hands-on with the high school athletes and our coach in the middle there. Baseball did the same thing. Lacrosse did a little variation. The coach kind of did it on his own just before the season started, but same thing, working with the rec. And tennis has theirs scheduled for the last 2 weeks of May. So they're just letting it warm up a little bit before they do that. So I know that was kind of a question, and my coaches were kind of already working on it, but I wanted to wait till it actually happened and dates were finalized before we shared that experience. Also wanted to kind of highlight some things at the middle school level. Softball, pretty pleased with my coaches. We had 32 girls sign up for softball at the middle school this year. And, obviously with that number, we're facing, you can only have so many athletes on a team at a time. So what do? Do we cut girls? Do we not? So with some problem solving, and I give kudos to both my coaches down there, they decided not to cut anybody and form like a practice squad. And these girls were kind of notified this is what was going to happen, and they were encouraged to we're going to rotate girls through the B team to get as many game opportunities as we can, but you're going to have to work to earn your spot. So we thought it was a good alternative. We're not cutting anybody. We're not, ending someone's athletic career short. We're giving them a opportunity to keep working and improving at practice. So hopefully they'll eventually get time to play in the game. And as for baseball, I had some questions coming from parents in the community about sixth graders playing on the team. There was some concerns about, why are we allowing sixth graders? Well, the reality is we only have 16 boys in the middle school baseball program, and 4 of them are sixth graders. So if we didn't take them, we would hardly be able to field the team. So that was kind of the reality of that. And I've been fielding some questions, so just kind of wanted to clarify. As far as track and field, both at the high school and the middle school, they've both been doing well. Some scuttlebutt of getting over there to Lisbon, but that's kind of part of the agreement with the co-op. If they want to participate in those activities, they have to find their own transportation. But otherwise, our spring sports are off and running. We've had scrimmages at the high school level. Middle school games will be starting in a couple weeks, and we have our first official high school game, lacrosse, this Saturday at the high school. So it's been a pretty good start to the spring. And I will say we're in a pretty good situation with our fields. I was at a meeting this morning where Mount Abram still has 8 inches of snow on their field. And to be honest, we're actually talking about having to water our fields because they're all sandy and dried out already. So we're in a pretty good spot fields-wise compared to other teams in the conference. So that's kind of a plus this early in the season. Proactive coaching. So we had an opportunity through the Mountain Valley Conference. We kind of came together as a conference and hired Rob Miller from Proactive Coaching. He's a speaker. Him and his partner, Rob Brown, I believe it is. They go around to schools all across the nation speaking about leadership, working on developing young athletes to be functional members of their team, things about how to be a leader, how to build team culture, how to develop a team, how to work through issues on and off the field or the court. So we were lucky enough, a couple weeks ago, I took about 22 athletes over to Winthrop High School with about 200 other students from across the Mountain Valley Conference, and we participated in a 5-hour kind of professional development for student athletes where they broke off into small group sessions, came together, various students from various schools, all working through the same issues that we all face in high school athletics. But it was a really good experience for them to kind of learn and grow and see that the issues we're having are not just at Oak Hill, but kind of across the board in athletics, and we're all working to kind of rise to the occasion together.
Can you have one of them for the parents?
So I should say the night before, we actually did a coach version of it. So it was a Monday night, all the coaches went, and then Tuesday was all the students. So not quite for parents, but it's a great idea. Lastly, a couple other things. I was lucky enough to attend the State of Maine AD conference last week. So it's a great opportunity to kind of network across the state, make different connections. While we were there, we met with the head of the Maine Principals Association, talking about different policies, bylaws that are coming up, talking about change of classes with athletics and contracts for equipment and different things like that. I was also able to take 2 courses here on the side, kind of highlight the LTC 508 UC, touching on different legal issues that we're facing in today's world. So it's always good to kind of be up to date and fresh with different legal things that are occurring, just to make sure that everyone's on the same page and we're handling everything appropriately. And lastly, something I kind of mentioned to Katie a couple weeks ago. I don't really know how it all kind of came to be or what happened. I apparently got nominated by a recruiter in the state of Maine to represent the state on the 2023 Educator Tour for the United States Army. I'm one of 2 educators recognized to represent the state, and I'm going to be flying down to Fort Bragg, North Carolina next week to do hands-on experiences with Army personnel. And it's all about trying to get, it's like a recruiting base to try to get information about the Army into schools and try to kind of bridge that gap. So I think there's 7 of us from New England, and it's pretty unique. I shared some of it with Katie, and I still don't know exactly all the details. It's kind of been a little mystery, but I do know this year in particularly, they kind of tag teamed with Army Special Forces, and it's the first time I've ever done that. So I'm going to be submitting an entire day doing a CAPEX exercise, which is hands-on combat experience with Army Rangers and Army Green Berets, going through different hands-on experiences, clearing rooms, using the latest equipment they use, and so I'm sure it's going to be quite an experience. I'm pretty excited to have this experience and then be able to share back and share that with the kids in our community, just so they can kind of see what they have to offer and how that kind of is. So pretty cool experience. Excited about. Any questions?
Laura?
I was just wondering if there's any future kind of thing about what grades the middle school is going to participate in, because like basketball, there was some like fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth teams just because of like how many kids were signing up and stuff. So there's other sports that are solely rec, like it looked like lacrosse wasn't up there, or football for middle school. But is there a thing in the future that they're going to be, or do we not quite know yet?
Are you saying just for adding on those sports
Right.
too? Definitely a conversation we could have. I would say the big thing would be budget restraints, because those are additional funds added onto the budget, and then also realizing what other schools actually have sports teams opposed to rec. It's kind of like a 50-50 split. It's a similar thing with field hockey. So I think just historically, we've always just offered these, but if it's something people are interested in and we can find room for it in the budget, and we can pay for the equipment, supplies, and transportation to accommodate that, I don't see it being an issue.
All right, thanks.
I have a comment. My kiddo participated in the baseball clinic, and I just wanted to give a kudos to those student athletes that helped the younger kids. It was very magical to just see these high school baseball players like really just engage with kiddos 2nd through 8th grade, and really just gave them such constructive feedback in a way that is different than hearing it from your coach. So I really appreciated that.
Yeah, it's a really cool opportunity, especially seeing it firsthand. Anytime you see our athletes kind of giving back to the younger grades, they look up at high school athletes like they're professional athletes.
Yeah.
And it's kind of funny to watch them come in, especially the real little kids. So it is awesome. Thank you.
We did it like 7 years ago or so, and one of the high school kids actually signed his baseball. And, like, no joke. And it's
Oh,
still
boy.
in a trophy. And he doesn't play baseball now, but
Yeah.
it was really funny.
That's awesome. Yeah.
But like all their junk baseballs from the year before, he just signed.
So be it worth someday, kid. All right.
Yeah, right?
Never know. Anyone else? No? Thank you, Brian.
Awesome. Thank you.
Jim?
Good evening. So, adult ed is at the top one, big one. Click it. Okay, so driver's ed, our driver's ed classes are filled right through the summer now. We've had 15 students enrolled in every class. That's the most we can take. We actually overbooked this current semester. So driver's ed has really picked up for us over the course of the year. Yoga. So we've had a little bit of an uptick in some of our enrichment classes. Yoga is actually going on at the school tonight. We had 10 new faces last week for our yoga class, and tonight we had 3 new faces. It's a 6-week session, but there's also drop-ins, so people have been just dropping in. The plan is to add another session after that. We've had some inquiries for chair yoga, which is another type of yoga. I just don't have an instructor certified for that. There's a different certification for that. But one of the other classes that we're looking to offer, we're just waiting for it to come through, is crossbow training. And we're working with the Inland Fisheries and Wildlife with that. I'm hoping that that connection will allow us to be able to offer some hunter safety next year. There was a real struggle across the state in finding instructors for that. So I'm hoping that we will be moved up the list where we're working with them on that. The other class that we're going to be offering in the next couple of weeks is pickleball. I wanted to wait until that we could do that outside. I think it's going to be a better event if we do it outside. So that should be coming in the next couple of weeks. Just want a reminder, save the date for our graduation. It's May 25th. We're still on pace to have 10 graduates. Whether 10 will come to actually be recognized is a different story. They usually do. We try to bribe them with cake and soda. So that's going to be right at Oak Hill High School. We actually have Representative Greenwood's going to be our guest speaker to talk about the importance of adult education. We're going to have the Voices of Color do a couple performances for us, so it should be a good evening. And that's it, unless there's any questions.
Thank you, Jeff. All right, so we will move on to new business. To approve the senior class trip to Six Flags and scheduled on May 12th through the 13th with an overnight stay in West Springfield, Massachusetts.
So moved.
Second.
And do we have someone here who would like to present?
Yep.
So I'm Derek Anderson. I was last here a few weeks ago requesting permission to go to Texas for academic decathlon, and that was approved, and that's underway in a couple weeks. So I'm here tonight as senior class advisor, and I've brought a couple of our student leaders. So I'll say, just to preface this, I mean, this senior class has been through a lot. They were freshmen when COVID started and have dealt with remote learning and cohorts and a flooded high school and all kinds of things over their 4 years. So to raise the money they have and to be, as organized as they've been, particularly from some of our leaders, I think credit just to be able to offer anything to our students. So they're going to talk a little bit about our planned trip. So we have Alexis Spencer here, class president, and Julia Kronster and vice president, secretary. Okay, you're up.
We are planning to attend Six Flags overnight on May 12th to the 13th. Big button. Great. We started researching where to go in the spring of last year, and our senior finance committee decided to go with either Six Flags or Funtown, depending on how much funds we could raise. And depending on if people were willing to pay $100, we wanted to go to Six Flags rather than Funtown because it's much better. So about 40 answered yes to going to Six Flags, and they did know about the $100 fee that they would have to pay. Yes, please. Oops. We're going to leave the school on Friday, May 12th at 7 a.m., then go to Six Flags, then stay for the day, leave, eat dinner locally in Springfield, West Springfield, check into the inn, and then we can do whatever that the hotel has until the next morning. Your turn.
All right. So when choosing our transportation, we realized that it was a large cost. So we found that the best thing that we could get for us was a Northeast Charter, which brings 56 passengers, coach with driver. The cost for this will be $4,340 with gratuity and hotel room extra. Over 40 seniors signed up, and chaperones signed up for this at this time. Our hotel is the Red Roof Inn in West Springfield, Massachusetts. The cost is estimated to be $3,035 with taxes. That is $189 per room, and we were thinking 4 people per room. The survey created by Derek Anderson will be sent out to the seniors in order to get a roommate. Interest if approved. Chaperones will have their own individual rooms, and the bus driver will also have a room as well. Six Flags admission. Group ticket price per person is $47. This does not include food. We would need 100 students plus to get a meal plan. The parking fee for the bus would be $25, and for every 15 seniors, there's 1 chaperone free. Right now, the cost of Six Flags to just get in without any food would be $1,905.
Seniors that are attending will be expected to pay for their own meals, 2 lunches and 1 dinner, as well as any souvenirs they may want to buy for their own personal collection. Click. Yeah, I'm looking. So the hotel is about $239 per room, and each room will have about 3 to 4 people, depending on the amount of students that are going. And then each chaperone will have their own. One bus driver will have their own too. $47 per ticket for Six Flags, and then the bus. No.
It's
Oops. All right. Well, she already said it, so that's good.
Yeah. And I think part of the issue here, can I jump in? Do you mind? I think what we found in researching, I mean, as we've seen across the board, is just inflation over the last few years. We did this exact same trip 4 years ago in 2019, and it was significantly cheaper. But the reality is all of those have gone up quite a bit. So students have sort of done the best they can and actually found the cheapest hotel available that would be in a safe area. Is that the end?
Thank you. Any questions?
All right, any questions, discussion? Bob?
So I always do, no surprise. So senior class trips, I always question, if for the senior class, how many of the seniors are going to actually attend? Because I see that these costs would be prohibitive probably for a number of the seniors in the class. And I always, if it's a senior class trip, why can't we have a trip that includes the seniors and not, how many seniors do we have?
40.
No,
Well,
that's
going.
going.
95.
40.
95.
96, but.
Yeah.
96
So
total.
90-something, so less
Right.
than half of the senior class is going to participate in this senior trip. That's the thing that bothers me. Every year these come up, every year I say this. It's no surprise, those who've been here with me for a while know I say this. I'm always looking at, why do we have to make it prohibitively costly for the majority of the class to participate in the senior trip?
Right. Yeah, and we've definitely taken that into account. We're kind of bummed that as many seniors wouldn't like to come as we have wanted. We would love to include everybody, and Mr. Anderson has sent out several emails of people that are willing to sponsor students if they do not have the funds to be able to attend the whole trip. And I think one of the other things is that many students have sports commitments already. So I feel like some of them don't want to miss out on some of those opportunities, and spend their own money. So I feel like that may be hindering a little bit of why our attendance record isn't as great as it would be.
So on the slide, you don't have cost per student.
Well,
Give us a bunch of different numbers, right? Was there a cost per student?
$100, then they cover their own food.
$100 that's the total cost per student?
No, plus spending money.
That's,
That's just what is the out-of-pocket cost for the students to be able to go. The rest of it was covered by fundraising that we've done since our
Okay.
freshman year.
And I think it's a fair question for sure. As a point of comparison, in 2019, we had raised enough money and this was significantly cheaper, so it was no cost to students beyond meals covered, and we offered, if that was a financial burden, that we could pay for that, and we only had 60 out of 100 go. So there are always going to be a significant portion of seniors who by this time, after 4 years in high school, just don't feel like they want to go for a night with their class. So I think the financial consideration is a little bit a part of it, but I think it's mostly the nature of the class and where they've been and who's interested in going.
Diane?
Is the cost for the room $189 or $239?
It's 189. I think that was from an earlier version. We'd priced out different hotels,
Okay.
and so it's 189 at Red Roof Inn.
Any other questions? Discussion? All right, seeing as there's none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor? All right, have fun.
Thank you.
All right, so we'll go back to old business, and we'll start with a budget overview.
Yeah, so I'm just reviewing the numbers. You've all had these numbers. So, and I'm going to our PowerPoint. So right now, as you know, from the last meeting, we put the science position back into cost center 1. We also, and so everything else remained as is. That really was the addition plus the maintenance budget. So we put approximately 35,000, I've got to pull it. 35,100. Good memory, Rachel. So that also went back in for the maintenance and impacted a couple of the cost centers. The bottom line is $22,453,164.82. $22,453,164.82.
Do you have copies for that slides that you sent out with the update mills and everything else?
Do you want those? We debated whether we wanted them to print them. You would like those? Okay.
Yeah.
So what I am going to share with you after the motion is the warrants too. So I do have copies of that for you to look at before the other votes. Okay. So you would like, and we can do that, you would like the general fund expended,
Just
which one?
reproduce the packet that you emailed.
Okay. Produce the packet that you've emailed.
Well, you gave us a packet, right? So we'll just replace this packet with an updated one.
You mean the one that I'm emailed to you? You wanted print, I know what you're asking. Yes, I know what they're asking. Yes, we're getting those. Okay. We're getting those. You brought your, yeah.
My ink cartridge said low.
We can also have NJ put up the, yeah, it's up there. So here is the budget.
What's that?
Did you want water? No, I didn't hear that.
No, we said hole punching too.
Which one would you like me to put on the screen right now, just for?
Can you put the impact one?
Yeah, the last one? Yeah, go ahead and show the last slide. The local contribution tax impact?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think you already passed.
Yeah, go back. Well, that's the, yeah, that was the one handout. Keep going,
It's like page 7.
keep going,
This one.
keep
Nope,
going.
one more.
There it is.
It is on the website as well, updated, so if you're on your electronic.
Laura.
Yeah, that's good.
I need a bigger table. I'm used to working off my lap everywhere.
There's a whole table right here.
I know, I'm gonna need it pretty soon. This book gets any bigger.
What is nobody like
I draw enough attention without a whole table to myself, I'm sure. Are we waiting? Sorry.
Copies, I guess.
Are we
Copies.
digesting? Okay.
Should have looked at last financial report.
No.
No.
You want to see another slide?
Yeah, can you
Which
bring up
other
the
slide do you want?
Expenditures article?
Yeah. You can go
I think
back up.
it's back up.
Keep going.
Keep going.
There, this one.
Yep.
Okay, yep.
So, looking at the number,
Yeah.
with the maintenance.
Which
line,
one? The maintenance ones? Yes?
13.77.
Yes?
That, can you give us what the percent, what the big drivers are in that number?
In the 3.5? You mean out of the maintenance budget?
Yeah, out of the maintenance line.
Okay, so let's go to, I brought my computer too. So go to your budget information and go to cost centers where we covered that cost center. Yeah. So this one was, there was an increase, remember this one started with, it was up significantly and then we went up. So obviously cost of goods purchased increased, just like we just talked about inflation. The feasibility study is in here. And we had an insurance increase of 15%. We had electricity increases of 135%. So it's just the overall of what we are doing for maintenance, yes. That's the increase there.
No, that's going to be a question.
Right, yes. Yep.
And another one too, the nutrition. We know what that is.
Correct.
I just want to make sure that people in the audience and online understand that, where that number is coming from.
Right, and so that's no longer going to be there. When I hand out the warrant, that will be, that's null and void, yes. So that's being moved into its own article. It's out of the general fund. So when I go through the warrant with you for your next vote, after you vote for the bottom line, then we'll go through the warrants and you can see where the money is. Okay?
Just to go back to maintenance for a minute, in the Versa, is it the Versa key cards?
Yeah, Ricotta, yeah.
Okay. So some of them have just a different amount, and it says like repairs and maintenance 45,000, and then it's the key cards.
Yes.
That 45,000 isn't just the key card; it's other maintenance included in it, right?
You mean for, yes, because it includes putting it in all
That's
the.
just the note of why
yes,
it's higher.
Correct.
And then is there any, everything else was kind of listed out with like how much equipment there is and buses and all of that, but there's some contracted services in those lines. Is it possible to get a list of those when their contracts expire and when they were last put out to bid?
Right, so remember, these are people who come in and do inspections and so forth like that. Do you want to talk about those, John?
So the contracted service lines, a lot of the charges that we code to that line are inspections, like Katie had mentioned. So things like our pest inspections along all the buildings, AAA fire, our bleachers and athletic equipment, like basketball hoops and bleachers inspections, generators, kitchen hood fire, all those kind of things. So those are, they're regularly scheduled inspections that we are required and or you know, some are required by state and federal law, some are just good practice. None of them are necessarily you know, we've signed a long-term contract with. I mean, a lot of these I can and I already have found different vendors for, because either service wasn't adequate enough or we could get a better price for the same service. So I think that line is a little bit misreading sometimes. When it says contracted services, everyone thinks long-term contract, not necessarily the case.
And is that under the purchase, and is that like the same for the purchase property services, or is that more of like organizations like Siemens, like some of the lines, they include Siemens contract payments, blah, blah, blah. Would it be possible to get just those listed with what they are, because if it's, at Cary Ricker, it's 117. The middle school has 268. So why is it so much more to take care of the middle school than it is Cary Ricker? I don't know, but Libby Tozier at 109. When you add, it's expensive, right, to have buildings open, but I just wasn't sure if we could get a list. We have a list of everything else, with like buses and equipment and how old stuff is and where it's at and all that. So if I could just see some of those, that would be great. And then my other question would be, just to draw some attention, the difference between the oil and the propane and the reduction that was. Is there any thought or communication happening with, like, if solar is beneficial? I know a ton of districts have done that to help with that energy cost, we know there's quite a few solar places going in, so just kind of thinking of that long-term investment.
Yep. So, and I don't know as much about it. Just it was a little bit before my time here, but we do have a contract with Ampion, who are basically they're the middleman for the solar farms. And there's a solar farm being built that is going to offset our utility costs, specifically with our electricity rates. So this spring, we're supposed to be seeing a reduction on our CMP bills, so it'll come through as supply and delivery charge, or rate and delivery charge, and it will show a credit to that bill for the use of those solar farms. So not specifically on school property, but utilized in other ways, yes, with the solar farm.
And do we know, and it might be like a little early, do we know what that could look like for a reduction or opportunity?
No, I guess I don't know off the top of my head. I could certainly look back and see if I think they might have been projected numbers at the time. I think they were restricted by not knowing the size of the solar farm at the time to be built, but all things that we can check back in with them. We have a good contact with them.
And then the only other thing I didn't see was middle school outdoor basketball hoops. Like 4 new ones would be super nice, but.
Yeah, certainly something that we could look into, especially, there's some grant opportunities that I'm looking to utilize more. Like I said about the key card entry system, I'm happy to look for other grant opportunities that we could, utilize for things like that. Absolutely.
Okay, that's all I got. Thank you.
Sure.
Oh, sorry, one more thing. I'm sorry. Can I? So the buses.
Sure.
20 we have on hand.
Correct.
And we use 13 regularly.
Correct.
And we have 10 drivers.
About to have 9.
And we have old buses. So is it 14? I saw like 14.
14 and 16 are the 2 older ones, yes.
So is there opportunity to liquidate any of that? That would be a positive anything versus them sitting there?
Yeah, I mean, you could look at cost-benefit analysis, right? I mean, I think initially, a year or 2 ago, or even pre-COVID, our bus fleet, as far as number of drivers, was substantially larger. So we didn't have as many spares because we had 15 drivers and we had 20 buses. Since obviously a few things have happened, we haven't had the number of bus drivers that we'd like to have. So hence our bus fleet looks like it's a little bit larger than it has to be. We certainly could do that, but it's a lot easier to get rid of a bus than it is to then get a bus. It's also a lot more expensive to buy a bus back if we find that our numbers are going up with our drivers. It doesn't really cost us much for those buses to be sitting. If anything, we're cycling them out a little bit to keep them on the road and keeping their wet and dry services from being too impactful to the budget. So, I mean, that's certainly something we could look into, but we're also getting to a point where some of those older buses are going to be up for state substitution, so we can recycle some of the older buses into some potentially some newer buses. So if we do liquidate some of the older ones, we're just prolonging the amount of time it takes to get state subsidy for new buses. So certainly something we could look into, but there's definitely a pro and con to having the buses and then liquidating them.
Thank you.
Yeah, I know, Laura, in the past, and I think I mentioned this before, but Mike Hannigan used to let us park our old buses, our non-used buses out back behind his garage. And if he needed parts for the buses, he would scavenger off those. Because I remember like 20 years ago, we auctioned off a bus and I think we got $50 for it. So those buses are more valuable to scavenge parts, tires, wheels, seats, door mechanisms and all that stuff than they are to put them out to bid and sell them. That's what we did in the past.
It's probably worth more than $50 in scrap.
Yeah, I was gonna. I'm not a bus expert, so
Right.
yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Christie?
I just want to clarify, so by having older buses in our fleet, we are eligible for state funding for newer buses.
Yeah, so the state subsidy, or basically where they reimburse you for the bus purchase, is based on a 10-year-old bus also having equal to or more than 125,000 miles. So one of our buses is will be next year of age, just not quite there in miles. We have another bus, the 16, that is a couple of years out, but is already there with the miles.
Diane?
I see at some different schools you have like pothole repairs and sidewalk repairs.
Yep.
Have you asked that gentleman that I told you about who lives locally to give you an estimate on that?
Barubi? No, I haven't yet. No, I was asking a few other local contractors, but certainly now that I have his contact, I'd be happy to reach out to him. If that's so, I don't know that was a service he did, so it'd be great to get one more quote. Yeah.
Any other discussion?
Yeah, so I would just have a question on, I guess, the order, why we wouldn't approve each of the individual warrant and then total up to make sure it matches the total, instead of approving a total, and in case one of the other articles gets modified, then the total one would need to be modified. I mean, it's the same way we'll do it at the budget meeting, right? We'll handle the individual warrant items, and then if one gets I went back and watched part of last year's budget meeting and discussions about amending certain amounts, which I thought maybe was why the budget book numbers were different. Now, the one I had time to watch, that amendment failed, but I don't know that any of the others, so I didn't get quite to the end to see if the total number was adjusted. But
Yeah, it was following last year's order in the agenda, but you can I think once you have the total, you're right, then it's going to impact the numbers in the warrant.
yeah, and do we typically vote on each of the individual warrant?
No.
It really was just a total,
Yeah,
right?
it was just a total.
Right.
Right, and it was made up of the individual
Exactly.
items. Yeah, so, yeah. So in that case, then we're where we should be.
Mhm.
We'll do that at the budget meeting.
Any other discussion? No? All right, seeing as there's no more discussion, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor?
Wait, motion 6.2.
Oh, wait.
We were at 6.1, now it's 6.2.
Oh, sorry. I thought we
It's
were
okay.
at 6.2 because of
No.
all the discussion we were having.
Yeah.
6.2, to approve the 2023-2024 RSU4 school budget in the amount of $22,453,164.82.
So move.
Second.
We've had discussion, but I'm offering up more discussion. No? All right, seeing as there's none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor?
Doing we do have calculations going on. Please hold up your hand.
All those opposed? Got it?
Pass 480 to 281.
Okay, motion passes. We'll move on to 6.3. I move that the vote entitled Vote to Call and Approve the Warrants for the Budget Meeting and the Budget Validation Referendum and to authorize the notice of amounts adopted be approved in form presented to this meeting, and that a copy of said vote be included with the meeting, minutes of this meeting. Do you need me to read through the entire thing?
No, coming from somebody that's read it now.
Thank you.
Is there a correction in it so that we don't have to go through the same issue we
Right.
had last year?
Are we sure it's right?
Can I get a motion?
Oh, so moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Katie is handing out some stuff, some of the discussion points.
So just to make sure you know what this vote is asking, I thought we'd go through the warrants because there is an addition that happened today. That's why this did not go out earlier, so we do apologize as we work through what needed to be in here and make sure it's correct so there aren't any corrections later. So you'll see on the first page is each article, which reflects in your packet by the cost centers, right? So that's the first page. On the second page, you'll see Article 12 is raising the funds, and that's the raising the funds that are required in order to get the ED 276, 279, thank you. Thank you. 279 funds, that's Article 12, so you can see that article. Then Article 13 is the local funds to support the ED 279, and also raise the additional local funds. Okay, so one is what you need to raise for ED 279, and one is the additional local funds. And then you'll see Article 14 summarizes what the total budget is. Article 15 is the nutrition, which was that 150,000 we talked about, which is to raise that and appropriate it. So that is in combined. That's a combined article. Then Article 16 is the adult education article, and you'll see that's the budget for the adult education program and then the amount being raised locally. Then Article 17 is to accept grants and other funds. Article 18, this is one that I put out there for you to consider, is the capital reserve fund, and this is the wording for that. So what I see happening is as we get to the end of the year, working with the Finance Committee and talking about what is the fund balance coming out of this year, the Finance Committee can discuss, well, here we are with the fund balance. We know right now that we use 400,000 of the fund balance to offset our budget and our taxes with making sure the budget balances. So we would look at where are we and how much could we put into the reserve. So it says up to 100,000, it might be 10, it might be 50, it might be the 100, depending on where we are at the end of the year. And then it also states that this allows the board to expend those reserve fund, so you would decide probably through the Finance Committee what would that money go towards and for the upcoming fiscal year. If we do not expend those reserve funds next year, they would roll into this reserve, and then you would have the article again to add to it and to expend it. So it just becomes an ongoing article. Okay? Article 19 is the one that you always have when the board can make the decision around exceeding 5%. So right now, you have the 5% between cost centers. So at the end of the year, we're going to look at our cost centers. Are there any cost centers in the red? And we can take a certain percentage out of the other cost centers that have money still there to fill that gap in a cost center that may be running into the red. So that allows that without going back to the public, allows the board. Now, the last one is brand new, and it's Article 20, and I want to give you another paper. So in reviewing and talking to the attorneys about the adult education article last year, So this article will not impact taxes. It does not impact taxes at all. What it's doing is it's allowing us to expend the budget that was agreed on last year. So what I've put is, here's from the budget book from last year, and you can see the adult ed proposed budget was $152,461. Then you see below the article for adult ed. So what I believe happened is they took the total, 152,461, and they put appropriate 102,461. They removed the 50,000 that they were then saying to raise locally. That was an error. That the total should have been where the 102,000 was, that should have read 152,461, and then raise 50,000 local. So if we do not have this pass on May 17th, we can't expend what we've expended. Okay? So it's a correction that has to be made.
Did the adult education, because it says here that we authorize to expend any additional incidental or miscellaneous receipts. So were there additional and incidental or miscellaneous receipts that was received through the adult education program that would offset this 50,000?
Well, remember, so on the top page, you can see what was put towards that in revenue, and there hasn't been additional revenue. You mean the additional, like, if he brought in 2,000 or 3,000?
Right.
Right. So this isn't about revenue. This is about being able to expend.
However,
Okay?
the warrant article says here, with authorization to expend any additional incidental or miscellaneous receipts in the interest and well-being of the adult education program.
Right.
So any expenses, any money that was raised by adult ed above and beyond what their expenses were is supposed to go to offset the cost of special ed, not roll into the regular budget.
Adult ed.
Or adult ed, yes.
Okay, so, the budget is, by the article, 102,000.
152?
No, it's 102,000. If we got additional dollars beyond the 102,000 of revenue, remember, the revenue is 152,000. We cannot expend that money.
We can only expend 102.
Correct.
So this will appropriate the sum of 102.
Mm-hmm.
So that's appropriate.
Yes.
Right? That's raising revenue, that's not expending it.
Mm-hmm.
For adult education and raising.
That's not raising it.
That's not raising, that's appropriating.
Well, appropriate.
We're only raising, what,
That's not
50,000?
No.
Raising is by taxation dollars, appropriating is other things.
Is that what expenses is when we say appropriation? That is what we're allowing them to spend?
That's what you're allowing them to spend, but that's only.
But they've already raised it to another, yeah,
Okay.
Shannon's right.
So then when we authorize to expend any additional incidental, so if there was any other monies raised besides out of adult ed to offset the 50,000 that we failed to.
Correct.
So what were the total receipts for adult ed that might have been above and beyond the 102,000?
Wait, I think we're still confusing two things.
Well, how much do we actually have to go and, since we allowed us to go and spend the money, if he'd have made $500,000 in, which he didn't.
Correct.
That
It
money
still would
go
not,
back to pay the adult ed.
it still wouldn't change the problem.
Okay, just want to make sure. 'Cause
Okay, I had the attorney read it. I asked, we checked in with other districts. We checked in with the Department of Ed.
Okay.
We have to change it.
Or we can't spend it.
Or we can't, and we've already spent above that. So we have to correct this.
Okay.
It doesn't impact anything, it's just to allow what we have to expend it. It was not done correctly in the article. That's why we've rechecked, checked, rechecked, checked. You know, Samantha and I are emailing at night to go over, okay, we've had the attorney double check us, recheck us, to make sure we're not having these conversations next year. But I want to make sure you had all the facts of why that article was added. Okay. So that's what your vote is to accept this.
So, if I may, so we've certainly added articles that we've never seen before in this RSU or in our predecessors' organizations. All right. So we've always stopped basically after what would be Article 617, right? Because that's the school budget. I feel that throwing Article 18 in with this motion here and not as, since it's going to be separate, is just kind of moving it under, because I strongly oppose this capital reserve fund. I do not strongly oppose the other articles, so you're wanting, that's one issue. I don't like my money being held back that could be used to lower my taxes by funding next year's budget, which is what we've always done. Now, I noticed that we did 200, 400, 400. That 200 was probably when we came out of being in the red at the end of the year by the auditors, and that's what we had for a fund balance. The 400 the next year, and the next year, or at least the second year, might have been conservative to allow a little bit of fund balance. But I'm not, if we have a fund balance, the majority of it, almost all of it, should go into offset the cost of the next budget, not to be stashed aside for us as a board to spend because a boiler goes up. Now, how do we get the money if a boiler goes up? Then, we have to then, if we need extra money, we do what we've always had to do, and that would be go back at a special meeting to raise that additional funds in order to go and pay for the boiler or something else, or find out where in the budget in the remaining year we could go and reduce the cost to go and cover it. So, that's my real issue with 18. In reality, I can, in going forward, as Sharon knows, my taxes aren't going to go up because I've lived in my house for over 10 years and I'm older than 65, and the legislature in their wisdom decided that they would freeze my property tax and they would somehow reimburse the town, maybe. But it's going to be all you other ones that are under 65 that are going to have to bear the brunt of increased budgets. So if you could keep the budget number that we're asking next year down, I think that's a smart thing to do, instead of asking, in this case, an extra 100,000. Now, I don't know what our fund balance is offhand, what the total amount, we don't have the auditor's report yet, which we should have already received. Even though he hasn't come, we should have had that for us to review by now, so that we could know exactly what the fund balance is, audited fund balance. And that's the amount of money that we typically would have thrown into the budget to offset costs. So we know this is a tight budget. The costs are going up. We're trying to do what we can to hold it down. We got rid of positions, cut a quarter of a position, using some of this money, to keep that down, I think is a better use of the money. I'm also surprised at the Article 19. We have worked well, I think, under the statute of being able to transfer up to 5% from any one cost center to others to go and cover it.
Yep.
Why we would want to have authority to transfer more than 5% out of a cost center to others? That would just allow us to do really poor budgeting and expenditures, because we don't have to worry, we can spend 25% over instead of tying ourselves to 5%. So that's an article that I've never seen before, and I don't think we've never needed it. We've never come close to not being able to have the dollars to move to cover our cost centers shortage if something was up over. So I would.
May I comment?
In a minute. Because, as soon as I'm done, you certainly can. But I think that those two, Article 18 and Article 19, shouldn't appear here. And if the taxpayers want to want to make a decision that they want to stick 100,000 in a reserve fund, then we ought to have a separate item on the warrant to establish and raise $100,000 and tack that onto their tax bill because they want to raise that money to put it in there. On the flip side, we're reducing the tax by using the fund balance, which people paid in already in taxes. They should get that back if we didn't use it for what the purpose was we raised it for going forward. So, and 19, I don't see the need for. So I'd like, when the time comes, I would try, I guess, an amendment of the motion if, once we have some other discussion, to remove those two articles from the budget book or from this motion. I'm done.
So just to clarify a little bit about the capital reserve fund, the reason it's coming up is that seems to be an ongoing discussion around having money to maintain our buildings, right? So instead of raising, it's way to look at the end of the year, what do we have and how do we use some of that money to help support what we might not be able to support with raising taxes. So yes, you can take all your fund balance and put it towards taxes next year, but then you don't necessarily have it the following year. And Bob and I have had this discussion before. So if at the end of this year you had $600,000 and you put it all towards the taxes, and then the following year you only have $200,000, you're now raising the taxes $400,000 to make it even again. So you are playing with an ebb and flow, okay? So right now you rely on having $400,000 each budget to offset taxes. And yes, the audit report, because things got delayed, we're looking at approximately $677,000 in fund balance. It had been over $1 million, but then we've been giving $400,000 towards the taxes. And so if you take that $400,000 that we have right now for next year's budget, we'll have $277,000 in the fund balance. And you're right, it's approximate as we work out. At the audited fund balance right now is $1,035,000. $1,035,000. And then we have to talk out things going for your $400,000 for taxes this year, $400,000 for taxes next year, and then there's other things, which we'll talk about at the audit meeting, which is next meeting. So you're correct. This is just a way of looking at the money at the end of the year and saying, do you want a reserve account that you can start addressing some of your capital improvement issues? So if you don't, you don't, and if you do, you do. And and I know comparing other districts, maybe this district doesn't want a reserve fund, but most districts in Western Maine, we were asked recently by another superintendent who's creating a reserve fund account, who else has reserve fund accounts? Most of them do. Most of them have more than one. They have 1, 2, or 3. Some have a special education reserve fund. Some have a capital improvement fund. Some have a transportation fund. It all depends what the needs are, and they appropriate a certain amount. This, I think, it lends that you could put $5,000 there. You would discuss what you do. You also would regulate it. The other one, I'll just comment about the 5% exceeds. You have to decide whether you would do that or not, and the Finance Committee would be watching those accounts they do every month and hope to God it doesn't go over 5%. If you got suddenly a big special ed cost, and now that special ed is in the red 8%, we have to go to the voters to move it.
We can run 5% from this one and 3% from that one, or 2 from here and 3 from there and 5 from there.
Right.
So
But
we
I'm
can't
just-
include more
I'm
than
just-
5% from any one.
Right, we just hope we do. It's just a precaution. You wouldn't do it unless the board agreed to do it, and you would be watching for it. It's just a safety measure. That's why the attorney put it in there. I'm just pointing out what other.
Christine? So I have a lot of thoughts. I'm trying to figure out where to start. Just thinking about the communities and how much everything is going up. And we all kind of, as a group, had a percentage that we were comfortable with. First glance of these two things, I think 18 and 19 will shut down this budget. I think that there is public perception that the school, the RSU, is hiding money. I do not believe that to be true, but I think that is a public perception, and that Article 18 will be looked at as this is the sneaky way that they can get their school, their new school. I think that will shut us down. So, with that being said, I don't support a capital reserve at this time as part of the articles. I agree with Bob that it could be something that we propose separate to see if that is something that the taxpayers want to do. But I don't think it should be part of all of this, because I think the perception will be we're trying to pull one over.
Yeah, I can understand the reason why we would need a capital reserve fund. But I just feel like we've always run our budget in RSU4 or School Union 44 in the towns pretty lean. And the auditors have told us, you know, of all the different schools that they audit, I mean, our budgets are basically 95 to 98%. We don't have a lot of fund balance left over. But I think that it's just showing a physically responsibility that we're not padding the budget. And I agree with Christie's thing. I mean, I don't think there's no way with this we're going to get a new school, but that's the perception. But the perception is that, you know, if the taxpayers want that and they can vote it down, they could vote this article down at the meeting, and it would just go away. We wouldn't have to, you know, we wouldn't have to do it here. But my point being is that money that we give back to the towns and that we've historically give back to the towns from our budget, and that's just what we've always done here. You know, we've always run a pretty tight ship. You know, and sometimes that, you know, we've had times that we've had to move money, but we've never had to move more than 5% from a different cost center since I've been here, and I've been here 23 years. So, can it happen? Yeah, it can happen. And I understand the reason for it, but I just don't think 18 and 19 is a good move right now. I just don't.
Okay, so I'm going to bring us back to the original motion. I believe this original one is just for the certain call centers, right? Because the next one acts.
First one is this whole.
Is the whole thing.
Yeah, so they can make a motion to change it, and then we'll print it.
Okay.
We still have, we already have a motion on the floor, so we'll have to
Yeah.
vote on
Right.
that motion, and then they can go from there.
Right.
Not correct.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. I would like to propose an amendment. I would like to propose an amendment that articles published in this article 18 and 19 be removed from the contents of this motion and not included in our warrant book.
Second it.
I need more discussion. All those in favor of the new motion?
With
Are you-
The amendment.
The amendment, sorry. Are you raising your hand to discuss? Okay. All those in favor of the amendment? Raise your hand.
So that becomes the motion.
So,
Discussion on that motion.
so now,
Discussion on the motion.
discussion on this
Yes.
motion.
So we would need to change what is now Article 20 and make that Article 18.
Yeah, it would become Article 18.
Yeah. Sam is going to fix it right now, because when you go to sign it,
Right.
at the end, she'll have it correct. She's removing Article 18 and Article 19. Is that correct?
Yes. Well, we
Well,
haven't-
when
Yeah,
you,
we haven't-
when
we
you
haven't
vote,
voted on the motion
I'm
yet.
sensing it's going to go, but yes, it might not.
I'm just double checking all the language, because I don't want to happen what happened.
Katie, I have a question. It
Sure.
says, every place where it says RSU, it doesn't have a 4 behind it. Does it need the 4?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I mean, we can,
No, because I think it's a regional school unit
Right.
budget 4 budget
Yeah.
meeting.
right.
Yeah.
So it's
Then-
referring
And he
to-
put in
I just wanted to
parentheses.
make- I just
yeah,
want to make sure. I didn't
he-
want somebody to
That's
bring it
all
up
right.
6 months from now and say, yeah, I know,
He-
I read
Yeah, it
that.
says in
Yeah.
parentheses RSU. Good. Robbie, we're asking the same questions.
Wanted to know.
Ask as many as you want. It's fine.
So you already have a motion on the floor, so
Yeah.
if there's any other discussion, then you call for the vote.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, all those in favor of removing? Thank you. So now we'll move on to 6.4. I move the vote entitled Vote to Call Minor Capital Referendum and approve the warrants and public hearing notices for the purpose be approved in form presented to this meeting, and that a copy of this vote be included with the minutes of this meeting. Again, do you need me to read down through? Thank you.
Thank you.
Motion, anybody? Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, can we discuss?
Yeah, let me read it.
Yeah.
What is this?
So this is the SRRF funds. And so this will, just like you asked about the capital improvement, maybe in the capital reserve fund, you would do a referendum question. We talked about that, but we'll face that again next year. So this is the notice of public hearing to have the referendum. So we're going to run both of these going with the budget meeting. So at the budget meeting on May 17th, you'll do the budget, and we'll do the referendum question for the SRRF funds. And then they will be voting on this, and this is the question, so that you could see the question. But remember, this is the one that we applied for, and it will be Libby Tozier and Spatus Primary around the ADA compliance. And so you can see the loan amounts, and then what's forgiven. And this won't go in this isn't in this year's budget. I mean, for next year, it will be in the following year.
Yeah, the next year. But
So will this be sent to every, because right now it says to the voters of the town of Sabattis?
Yeah, this is a sample.
Okay.
This is a sample. You have lots to sign when we're all said and done. So, yes, that was the sample. I wanted you to see what it looked like. But yes, you all will have all of your. Thank you. Perfect. Yep. Thank you.
Any discussion?
Katie, is there any way that we can put, I know what the acronym means, but a lot of people might not.
What, or what?
Acronym.
The acronym SRR.
It says it right there
Oh, it
in
does?
there. in
School
our-
Oh, I see.
First paragraph.
Yeah.
All right, I see it.
We hope everybody knows what ADA is.
Yeah, well, I know ADA, but
Right.
I was thinking about, yeah. School, yeah,
I
I
had the
did see
same
it.
question.
Yeah.
No, you did it.
Seeing as there's no discussion, then I will call for the vote. All those in favor? Thank you.
If I may, before we leave this budgeting stuff,
Sure.
I think that because of us taking out the capital reserve, that a new look will need to be made so that we can perhaps amend the amounts at the budget meeting on local share and see how much of our fund balance we want to move in above the 400,000 that's already there. So since we've already voted on the budget amount and what it was, I think the board needs to go and discuss before the budget meeting what amount of the fund balance we actually want to move in in addition to the 400 to reduce the taxes, so that we'll be able to have that motion available and the numbers to put up on the screen to show the impact to the local additional amounts.
So my question is, do you want to not sign tonight and do this at the next meeting?
I think we can sign tonight. We've
Because-
made amendments at the budget meeting on newfound information, like we might have just got in
Oh,
the
okay.
insurance or something.
Oh, we got more state funds.
We
at
got
one
more
time.
state funds one time, so we can amend the motion for the warrant article for the total amount at the budget meeting and let people know that.
I just think you got to be very careful around your fund balance. So maybe we need to have a
Well,
whole.
that's why I think we.
Yeah,
the board
I
needs
think we have to
discuss
have somebody who,
Well,
to inform.
Auditor's going to be here next week.
That's right. I think it'd be excellent to ask him what his thought is about fund balance. That's definitely, because I would hate to put us in a position we wish we hadn't done something. So, okay.
And we have been there before.
I know you have, and that's why you built it back up again.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that was, well,
Yeah, I
we're still
just-
looking at financial stuff, I thought, mentioned.
No, that's okay. So 6.3, to discuss the CAI Subcommittee recommendations for the 2023 and 2024 RSU4 school calendar.
Scott, do you want to take it? You want me to take it? Okay.
Come on, Scott.
No
one You get your turn too, Scott.
No one wants to be guilty.
Yeah, okay, I'll start jumping. That's okay. So, per the request of the board, the CAI committee met to revisit the early release Wednesday, and we're joined by some of our building administrators and one of our instructional coaches to really understand the impact. There's two impacts that we were made aware of. There's a budgetary impact if we eliminate our late starts to just 1 hour, because, and this did not compute in my head for a little bit until I really thought about it, because if we wanted our educational technicians to participate, they would be working an extra hour, and we would have to pay them an extra hour to stay for the professional development. So that budgetary impact would be $11,200. No, wait. Yes. So if we move to the early release, except for early release every week except for short weeks, that would impact our budget by $11,200. If we went to twice a month, it's estimated that it would impact our budget $20,000 or up. So as a committee, we determined that we would like to look at the options that would keep us budget neutral, knowing that we are in a really tight financial situation. So we were able to ask some questions about what is actually happening during those early release times, and really wanted to hear how it benefits our students, because we were hearing from this board and also in the public about concerns about limited seat time. Our kids are losing time in school. So we really wanted to hear what kind of impacts is this making on our students and our staff. So I'm going to start with staffs first. I think one of the important things that I heard tonight was that we have had absolutely no changes in our educational technician staff over this year. So there is this feeling of our staff at all levels feeling really supported, which was not the case. Kathy, remind me last year at this time, how many changes did we have with ed techs?
Well, we had 35 openings at this point. And at this part of the year, we have 0 right now, that are new.
That are new. They talked a lot about that for some of our buildings, this is the only common planning time that grade level teachers have together, and that has made a really huge impact. That are at the high school level, students are actually able to stay and get extra help from teachers at that time. And really, at the middle school, looking at systems thinking, and every decision and everything that they're doing is having the student at the center. So they're able to think about behaviors that are happening at the middle school, high school, across the schools, Carrie Ricker, SPS, and Libby Tozier, and really have that time to really invest in changing and understanding the functions of the behaviors to keep kids in the classroom. What else am I missing? We have lots of data around behaviors and changes of behaviors. We've noticed that in our reports that we've heard from our administrators from our schools. So at this point, the CAI committee is recommending that we stay with the 2-hour early release weekly. And we would propose that we revisit the timing to see if maybe we can adjust it to an hour and a half next year, or maybe even to an hour next year at this time, as we're thinking about our school budgets and the implications it would take to keep our educational technicians in 1 hour of that meeting. It's a really important piece because they are the most that are student facing. So that is our proposal. Did I miss anything?
Can I also add the RTI data? They're saying that behavioral issues have literally been cut in half, and they equate a lot of that to this extra time that they're having for getting together, training, building a culture.
Thank you. So that was just for discussion point, and it'll be on our next for approval.
Can I just,
Okay.
so just a couple, I was a little confused, and I thank the committee for looking at this. I mean, he certainly spent some time, and I appreciate the recommendation. But the number of, if we went to 1 hour, it would cost us to have the ed techs 11,000. But when we're 2 hours, do we keep the ed techs for an hour? And is that the same cost?
11,200 is for the short week.
It's for the short week. I don't have the figure if we go
Oh,
for one. If we go to 1 hour, the ed techs cannot be part of it unless we pay them additional.
But when it's 2 hours, do they stay an hour?
They do.
So that's an hour is an hour, right?
No, because they're working that hour. So that's what didn't make sense to me too, Bob. So let's say there's 8
So
hours.
then
in a-
ed techs don't get released 2 hours early, they only get released
They
an
get
hour early?
released 2 hours early, but they only stay for 1 hour.
Right, so if we only had 1 hour, I just didn't make sense, so they only had 1 hour.
Then there's
it
still.
would
They
seem the same-
participate in
same
the
period
first
of
hour.
time.
Yeah.
They participate in the first hour.
Right, so it seems like the same number of hours in the
Right.
day, but I was just,
I was thinking the same.
yeah.
So were ed tech hours cut when we started this?
No, we've always had, they never came to late start, so when we switched to early release, they just came for the 1 hour, that's why they don't come for the 2, because our budget has always been the 35 hours or whatever. They never were at late start, so we just flipped it and just did the 1 hour on the early release. That's why if you reduce how many, and we have students there, we have to increase the budget because now you're having ed techs be there when students are gonna be there.
So that, okay, so well, I still see it as 35 hours. I mean, they're working 6 hours a day, 5 days a week.
No.
They're-
Wednesdays
7
are
hours.
unique, right? So
Yeah.
Wednesdays are unique in that prior to this year, when we had the late start, right? Your ed techs didn't come in for that late
Oh,
start.
it was a 2 hour late start, not a
1 hour.
It was a 1 hour late start.
Right.
So they worked from X to Y, and now we moved X ahead and we moved Y back. Isn't the same number of hours?
So our late starts were an hour. This year, the early release is 2 hours.
Right.
So they participate in an hour of professional development and then leave an hour, earlier than they normally do during the week on those Wednesdays.
I don't know, it comes up with the same mathematical number of hours in the day. You
So-
moved them back, if you shift from here, you moved them back.
So let's say it's 7
Over there.
hours. When it was early release, ed techs only got paid for 6 because they didn't participate in that. And now we're getting out 2 hours early. So ed techs are still only getting paid 6.
But they're getting the hour.
But they're getting the hour of professional development instead of coming in an hour late.
Okay, I don't know, I can't, hard time getting my head
So
around it.
it's
I
not
guess.
an effect for if you keep it the same. However, if you were to reduce RPLG's time, right, it's either going to not have them participate, or you're increasing student time, which means then ed techs would need to be there during student time. We have not budgeted for that extra hour.
So by keeping it the same, there's no budgetary impact.
Correct.
And the ed
And-
techs still get the professional development.
And if it was like every other week, an ed tech would have a different paycheck every single week. Some weeks they would have early release and some weeks they would have full So that's why we explored all of them and showed that what are the two budget neutral options.
So you said they're being paid for 35 hours a week?
34.
34.
34.
Did it used to be 35? Because that's what I was told by some ed techs. We used to have 35 hours, and they cut us when they started the late starts.
May have.
Well, I would think that had to be the case, right? Because they had to come in when school started, and they stayed till school was out. If we didn't start school at earlier and stayed at the same late, that'd be an hour less in a day.
Yeah.
So they'd
It's
get,
the same amount of hours, Diana, I've been here almost 9, 10 years, so I never know if prior to that, if that was.
Yeah.
All right, so we will move on to committee reports, which CAI and technology would be the only one reporting out. Am I assuming that this was your report?
Yes.
Okay. 9, any board member comments? Diane?
I went to the National Honor Society at the high school, and I have to say I was really impressed. I had gone to the one when my daughter had gotten it in Lewiston, and it was after school, so none of the kids went, but this was during school day, so the whole school was there, so that was really impressive. And I like that you had freshmen, sophomores, juniors, seniors, and they were all in the gym, so they all fit. So it was wonderful.
Laura?
I would just like to comment that it's really nice seeing the RSU share a lot on their Facebook page and kind of get it out there. And I would love to see the meeting shared as well. And I think it's coming, but also kind of some of those events that are happening, because some of us with kids in littler grades don't always know and what's happening at different schools. So it's really cool to kind of see those shared on that platform.
Without any objection, I would declare this meeting adjourned at 8:15.